Hey everyone, back again here. I'm actually going to bring you a tutorial. This one's going to be on installing Active Directory on a Windows Server 2012 R2. The basic steps are the same since 2008. Just the method of getting there is a little bit different since 2012. So we're going to start up. Go to Manage, add a role or feature. This is going through the server manager. It should auto pop up whenever you first install Windows Server. If you click a box or do some options, you can actually make it where it never pops up. You'll have to still get to it. Usually it's pinned to the taskbar, as you can see down here. So once you have the add roles and features window open, as you can tell here, I'm on a virtual, so it's a little bit kind of small on my screen, even though I'm trying to record a little bit bigger for you guys. So we're going to go role-based feature installation. We're not doing any remote desktop services. So click next. In this case, I only have one server in this pool, so I'm just on basically have the primary selected here. You can select a virtual disk if you have virtuals. In this case, I don't. So I'm just going to keep on clicking next here. Okay, so depending on what you want to be doing in your Active Directory, if you wanted to have full control over Active Directory and you want to be able to have certificates, you first install Active Directory domain services. This will install add features. It's going to install the PowerShell features and everything. Now, if you want to be able to do special things like certificates and everything that are accredited to all the different computers on your network, and you have a dedicated certificate that's not outside and everybody can verify off it, especially if you want to do a VPN into the server. Best way to go is add a certificate or purchase a certificate and then apply it onto the server. In this case, I'm just going to show you to install Active Directory domain services. This will be a light set of clients, servers, and you can actually attach this onto a currently active directory. So click next. In this case, we're not done installing anything extra on features. If anything's missing, it's going to auto install. One of the main things that you see is DNS is in here. When you set up Active Directory, I did not say this at the beginning, make sure you have a static IP for your server. What it's going to do is use DNS in this case, which usually binds to a NIC and sometimes will bind to the IP depending on what server you're on, which makes it a little bit of hassle when you change networks. What it's going to do is bind to that, so then it's always referenced as that. I have DNS already installed. What it will do is require DNS, so we'll install DNS along with it. DHCP is not needed. File storage services are not really needed. IIS now and with SUSE. IIS might be needed depending on what service you install for Active Directory, but in this case, we're not going to need it. So we're going to click next. Okay, it's going to say do you want to restart, and click install. Okay, so now that the installation is done, you'll see the complete listing of everything that's done. Shows you all the services that are installed. Now, the next thing it says, additional steps are required in this machine to make this machine a domain controller. So, promote server to domain controller. What that's running is dcpromo, which you'll use even if you were attaching to an Active Directory that was already present. If you're attaching another new server to it, you use dcpromo. If you're trying to make this server the primary on that network, you'll use dcpromo. You also use dcpromo to demote a server. But in this case, we're just creating a whole new network off of the Active Directory. So I'm just going to click Active Directory here. Boom. All right. So like I was talking about those options, it says add domain to an existing domain controller to an existing domain. That means you have another domain controller. Add a new domain to an existing forest. So that means you're trying to add a child domain onto an existing forest, would be referencing an already Active Directory network that has already built up and said you're a branch child off of it. It's kind of like a branch network. Or add a new forest. In this case, we're adding a new forest. Root domain. Now, a lot of things that people do is I own GM scripts. And my start button just totally just said no. See if I can type here. Nope. My start button stuck. Second time that's happened here. There we go. Alright. So I own gmscripts.org. Well, you don't want your root domain to be gmscripts.org. Main reason why is if I said gmscripts.org as the root domain, that sets a DNS record in for gmscripts.org. That would mean setting in every single record for gmscripts.org into the DNS that is located in your server manager. And I saw that open. It means I have to go to DNS and add in all my A records, make sure they point correctly, the www, and if I had subdomains, I need to go and add those in. You don't want to do that. Instead, this is a local domain. So you usually would set it to the closest thing. So the root domain is GM scripts. and you probably would set .local at the end, or you can just set GM scripts. .local is just a reference that it's inside the network, not outside the network. It's kind of a nicer thing to do. You don't want to usually use a domain name. Like I said, you'll run into the issue if you had to add in records or you had to make a reference file to make sure it pulls correctly. It just becomes a hassle in that case. So we're going to click next here. Okay, so the next option is domain controller options. What that's going to do is you're going to set your force level, your function of your domain. In this case, it's going to be server 2012. I can choose 2008 R2. That allows me to backdate what servers I can have in here. But usually if you're building a new network and you don't have any pre-existing servers and you're just trying to set up your domain, you'll probably go with the latest, because next time you upgrade or add another server into it, you'll probably be adding the latest server. And if you're not, you can always run the dcpromo again, which will allow you to change these functionalities in the domain. Now, the next thing is you see all they're grayed out. Reason why these are grayed out is because I'm actually creating a new force. So the new force is going to definitely have its own DNS. Like I told you, it's going to require DNS. The next thing is a global catalog. That means it holds the primary catalog for the whole forest. Now, you can't choose read-only domain controller because it's the primary. It's the root, and it's the main part of the forest, which makes it a global catalog. Next thing that you have is directory service restore meta password. This is in case your directory you need to recover, or you forgot your admin password, or you need to, you have to make sure you fill this in. So I'm just gonna set up a password here. Make sure you write this down somewhere because you might need it later on just to get in or change some things. So click next. Oh, verification super failed. Okay, so I didn't set enough secure enough password. So let's change that around here. That was my bad. Okay, that password should be, there we go. The service cannot be created because the author and parent cannot be found. Okay, that's because my record's not found. So if I click show more, then say delegation DNS cannot be created, authorized parent zone cannot be found, or does not run Windows Server, So basically what it's saying is it can't add it in, or it cannot find it right now. That's mainly because I installed DNS beforehand. If you install Active Directory without anything else on the server, it will auto start adding it into the DNS for you. So I'm just going to click next here. Okay, so what now you're going to see is the NetBIOS domain name. So it's GM scripts. That means the server's going to be counted as GM scripts. In this case, I'm not worried about changing it because that's all. I'm not worried. You can set this as primary or secondary, whatever you want to kind of reference back to the server. It's just setting a NetBIOS name to it. So, doop. All right. So the next thing it's going to do is show you the paths of where everything's being stored. You can change this location if need be if you want to store these on a secondary. In this case, I'm going to leave them as primary wherever they need to be. If you change their location, you have to make sure they have their permissions. When you're running through the wizard, it'll usually do those permissions for you, but just a heads up if you do. And there is more Active Directory paths if I click right here. In this case, it's going to go to Microsoft, so I'm not going to actually show that. It will give you other things that you can change and settings, and you can change those later. Like I said, anything that I'm doing right now, you can actually change most of it when you do dcpromo later on if you need to promote it or demote it in the network or in the forest that you have. Now, I'm just reviewing my options here in this last step, and it's just telling me how I have everything set up. I'm changing to dmscripts.local. The NetBIOS to find this forest or domain is GM scripts. And as you can see, it just tells you the functionality and everything that you went through. And password's been set, same as administrator. This is saying when I log into my machine now, after your AD has been set up, it's going to be administrator still, and it's going to be the same password as I had as administrator when I first set up the server. So then I click next. Now what it's going to do is verify all the settings on my computer. Okay, so what you see next is that it popped up and it said it passed prerequisites. What it did give me is warnings, algorithm compatibility and all that prevents weaker. It's just giving me what the settings I've just set in might be giving me errors. Does not have a static IP. At least one of my NICs. I have two NICs on this computer, and one is actually static, the other one is not. And server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. Another thing that I didn't mention is depending on when you install the services is dependent on how they're going to work. If you install DNS beforehand, it doesn't change its user, so you have to actually sometimes go manually in because it'll disable your local administrator. Same thing for DHCP, IIS, anything that you installed before you installed AD. Usually, whenever you make a new fresh load of server, you want to make sure that you install Active Directory first and then install the services. Now, that comes into an issue of what happens if you remove AD. Well, if you installed AD in the first place, you probably don't want to remove AD anyways. You just want to demote it. That's what dcpromo comes into play. And then you can just take it out of the network. And usually by the time that you remove AD off a server is when it's outdated or it needs to be replaced and all that comes into play. And then if I scroll down to the very bottom, it prerequisite check and you have passed. And then I can click install. Boop. Now, once it gets done installing, same thing for whenever you do a promotion and everything, it will usually force a reboot. Rebooting the server, make sure it starts up correctly and Active Directory is running as a primary service to get in and pull out the usernames and encryption and all that information. Alright, so after it gets done with 2012 and 2012 R2, you'll get a little pop-up here that says you're about to be signed out, upon clicking close. Okay, tells me my information of what it did, delegation. Like I said, the DNS was installed beforehand, so I got an error. If you install AD before anything else, then it's going to be fixed in that case. And that's how you install Active Directory. I'll be later on going on about how to add a client to it and what information you need, and then how to add users. So, hope to see you guys there. Hope this was useful, and have a good one. Well, thank you for watching. I'll show you in the next one more detailed on insert using these new columns and the types that you're using. And then finally, I'll get to the delete function. In this case, I took a little bit too long on the create, and I hope you guys learned a little bit from it. Have a good one. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a comment or like below. If you want to keep up with all activities on the channel, click subscribe. And if you would like to watch another video, there's some videos listed down below here. And thanks for watching.